Good morning. Welcome to Christmas in July. Isn't that so weird that this is something we celebrate? If you're new here today, I see a couple new faces. Welcome. I'm so happy you decided to be here with us today. As I was prepping for this sermon, I readily noticed that a lot of these texts are very familiar during the Advent season. And I went on to think about what are some of those things I expected during the Christmas season. For me and my own family, especially, I have this unique memory of being in Mexico. And although it was kind of during Advent season, it was an Epiphany, we celebrated the Magi coming to our neighborhood. And I really thought the Magi would come to my door and they would place gifts in my shoes. It's a ritual that they do in Mexico pretty often during this time, during the Epiphany time. And I still looked forward to it the next year. And I'm sure you at some point told your own children about perhaps Santa Claus leaving gifts or whatever your own ritual was. But you see, somehow rituals follow us. And I wonder, do you have a weekly ritual that you do? Something you just have to do every week, if not every day? And no, I'm not talking about work. We have to do that. But something that you look forward to, that it consistently fills your cup. You see, for most Americans, it just happens to be the morning ritual of a nice, hot, brewed cup of coffee. Am I right, Brian? All right. Whether it's making it yourself or visiting your favorite local cafe, there's just something about that ritual that feels right to you. For others, the rituals look very different. Maybe it's a bedtime routine for you. Or maybe it's weekly or daily family dinners. Whatever the activity that you find yourself doing, you sometimes feel disoriented if it's missing from your week. You see, these rituals help us center ourselves and build rhythms that make sense or bring relief to what may have been particularly a hard day. You see, for me, it happens to be making my bed every morning. There's something about a freshly made bed that just makes me feel like I'm going to be all right. You know what I mean? Even if all the other things in my week just fell through, if I just made my bed that week, I feel like I have a sense of control. And you know what's funny is and it's not even like in the morning that I make my bed. As long as I make my bed at any time, I also am guilty of like making my bed right before bedtime. There's just some things like if I just made my bed today, whatever time it is, I'm like, you know what? I got things under control. Similarly, there are rituals in our spiritual lives that may have drive us towards connection. And for this community here at Willow Avenue Mennonite Church, it is our monthly communion where we gather in a circle and partake in this mystery, or how we stand and sit at the reading of the gospel every Sunday. I further wonder how many of us engage in these rituals because we aren't all right. It is precisely that cup of coffee, the walk in the neighborhood that Bill Braun often takes, or the chat with a loved one that makes me make sense of a world, or makes us make sense of a world that is hurting. Today, I want to explore how one woman's commitment to ritual became a powerful expression of her faith and longing for redemption. So let us now turn our attention to the story of Anna the prophetess in the Gospel of Luke, a woman whose life was profoundly shaped by her devotion to ritual. Here we learn a couple things of this often overlooked character in Jesus' childhood. We learn that she was at the temple, while she was at the temple, she stumbles about a scene that just changes her life again. Just before we meet Anna, though, in this text, in that very same temple, there was a man named Simeon, as we heard, who was devoted and righteous. Simeon, it says, was led by the Spirit into the temple, and it was revealed to him that he would meet Jesus before he dies. And as Mary and Joseph come in and follow along with the custom of the law required for the child Jesus, Simeon sees Jesus. And he takes him, it says, takes him into his arms, and he praises God. And he has this extraordinary interaction with Mary and Joseph. And as we witness this scene, we notice someone else has been here all along. If not Mary, Joseph, Jesus, and Simeon entered the temple, somebody's been here all along, way before, actually, Mary, Joseph, Jesus, and Simeon entered the temple. And we see this scene play out. And she's probably in the back praying, maybe sometimes weeping. And it is Anna, a very old woman, that comes in daily. You see, Anna's a regular here. Known as a devout widow and prophet, I visualize her being something like this. Someone who wakes up just before sunrise, prepares her things, and makes her way straight into the temple. She's ready to worship until sundown, her life always marked by pain. You see, Anna was married only 7 years, the text says, and after the death of her husband, she remained a widow. I wonder how often she thought to herself, today I will see the Lord, or all things will be transformed. And I wonder if on other days, she just sat in the temple and grieved her loss. If it wasn't for that ritual of prayer and fasting that she partook in, that was helping her make sense of all that was not right in Israel. Anna was experiencing many different types of griefs, you see. She experienced the loss of a person who was close to her, the vision, perhaps, of a beautiful marriage that was now stripped from her. She not only lost this dream, but also lost some of the status that came with being a wedded person. Without her husband, now many of those privileges now unavailable to her. Anna was also experiencing the deep grief of someone she loved now dearly gone. And I wonder how many of us at some point have also felt loss. Loss of a dream or vision that we once had. Maybe it was the potential promotion at work. Maybe it was something we dreamed our children or close family member would achieve. Maybe it was a goal or hobby that we just never pursued. Maybe it's the end to a war. Maybe justice and peace on this earth, or a renewed community. I also wonder how many of us have felt the loss of status. Maybe it's from a demotion or loss of a job. Maybe we are discovering who we are in our retirement and finding purpose. Maybe something bad happened in our family that's left a mark. These losses lead us to a low point in our life where we may feel unhopeful, confused, and angry. And you're probably wondering, why am I talking about loss? And the reality is, Anna was a widow and a prophet, but she perhaps was sensing some pain. And as I was prepping for this sermon and listening to this community and recognizing I'll be speaking on Anna, I wondered in what ways our own church has also experienced loss or transitions. I think about celebrating the Friesens' relocation to Indiana and how happy we were to send them off, and how happy Stan always was to say every year that he was going to move to Indiana. And at some point, people were just telling me, they're not really moving. Boom, they moved. You lied to me. I was prepared, they're not going to move. They left. We marked Mark and Lynn's retirement with heartfelt words, and many of us were there. The barn raisers that continually come together to help people with their transitions, and more especially Melly and Jeremiah's pack and move to Redding, California, another loss that we remember. And today we are bidding farewell to the Gazars and next week to Braden on to their new journeys. And most of these celebrations are happy, but also in some ways tied to loss or grief or the transition to something new that can be hard. While these changes are often joyous, they also bring a sense of grieving that we have to adjust to a new normal. In times of change and uncertainty, we can find inspiration and challenge in the story of Anna from the Bible. In her time of despair and need, Anna turns to the Lord. The text describes her as a faithful servant to the Lord. She engages in her daily rituals of fasting, praying, perhaps weeping and encouraging those at the temple, which helps her become hopeful. After the death of her husband, she commits herself to something greater than her grief, worship and devotion to God. Anna, in her despair, moves towards God through her daily rituals. For those here today going through a difficult time, I wonder what spiritual rituals we can engage in to draw closer to God. Maybe we can worship or fast and pray like Anna does. And there are also many other rituals to engage in. So my question is, what is something you can do this week to move closer to God? Anna serves as an example again for us for how to deal with grief, loss, and transitions. And at the end of the passage, we see how Jesus is right beside us. Anna gets the chance to meet Jesus, or more likely, Jesus came to her in her grief. She is overjoyed, giving thanks to God, and spoke about Jesus to all who were looking forward to the redemption of Israel. In the same way, Jesus meets us in our difficult times. When we come face to face with him, we have the opportunity to give thanks to God and to go out and share about him and give others hope. We know that because of God, we have a hope in our own situations and in our church and in the world for redemption. Amen.